Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Tech Council's information session on workforce development opportunities and resources across the state through our state agencies and through our local jurisdictions. And I just want to say I appreciate so much all the people that are joining us today. There's going to be a lot of information that is going to come forward, and we will definitely make sure that we get this information out to all of those that are attending today, and then also the rest of our members who may not be able to attend today. I'm Kelly Schulz. I am the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council, and I'm joined by some fabulous industry experts here today, many of whom I have worked with for a very long time while I was at the Department of Labor. So I'm going to do very brief introductions, and I want to then talk just informally and answer any of your questions as well. The first round is going to be our state resources, and the second round, starting at 9:15, is going to be more local resources for individual jurisdictions. So for our first panel, I have the director of the Maryland State Office of Apprenticeship, Mr. Chris MacLarion. And I'm also very grateful to have the director of the EARN program, Employment Advancement Right Now, Mary Keller, and she's brought a guest to talk a little bit about his program as well, Bruce Spector with the Baltimore Cyber Range. So please just dig in and write notes. And if not, we'll make sure that we give you the rest of the information. So Mr. MacLarion, I'm going to start with you. The Office of Apprenticeship at the Department of Labor has been a growing entity over the course of the last 8 years, mostly because of you and what you've been able to do with your team to help grow and talk about the importance of workforce development as it works with apprentices. And we're going to talk a little bit about traditional apprenticeships, but obviously non-traditional apprenticeships when we're talking to our industry partners in the life science, biotech, and technology industries. So would love for you to share a little bit about your office and what you do to increase the opportunities for both employers and employees.
So good morning, ma'am. Thank you for you and your team having both Mary and I here. It's a pleasure to be here. And on behalf of Acting Secretary Wu, we're excited to talk about apprenticeship and the EARN program and all of the other resources that we have available. I'll start by saying I'm very flattered with the compliment that our growth has been, but we have a team of 13 people spread out across the state. And I'll start with the fact that we have apprenticeship navigators, program managers, and other experts that work directly with businesses. They work with high schools, colleges, associations, unions, and essentially any entity, to include somebody like the Maryland Tech Council that's interested in the Registered Apprenticeship Program. And I'll add, for those that don't know, Registered Apprenticeship is essentially, it's a business-driven, industry-driven method of educating and training your workforce. That could be incumbent workers that you're looking to upskill into more advanced positions, or it could be job seekers that you're looking to bring on board to your organization, but they might not have all the requirements that you would like for a fully developed and strong worker. It enables you to essentially grow your own. And what apprenticeship does in the simplest of terms is it combines paid on-the-job training with education. The regulations call for 144 hours of schooling per year on top of a regular workload that the apprentice would go through. The apprentice starts at a lower rate, a much lower rate than what a fully qualified expert in your industry would do. What I'll point to as an example, and later on we have Vice President Minah from Howard Community College, and I know you'll introduce her as well, but she'll talk a little bit more in depth about tech and some tech programs. So I'll point to a different one in GlaxoSmithKline, which is a leader in the industry. I'm sure everybody's aware of GSK by their acronym. They built their own registered apprenticeship program, which has a series of occupations that they've chosen to educate in, to include instrumentation and electrical technicians, validation technicians, biopharmaceutical manufacturing associates, and biochemical associates. And essentially, they'll hire brand new workers, 18 or older, as they graduate high school, and they build an entire associate's degree right into the apprenticeship program. They pay those apprentices to go to work every day to learn their industry and their occupation. And then at the end of it, they have a fully qualified worker. It's a great way for the tech industry to grow their own. And I would like to add that as we look at apprentices and across the state, and some of you might have outline offices in other states, Maryland is a state apprenticeship agency. So when Kelly was mentioning how we've grown our own and how we've raised the program up and really grown their numbers, is the state of Maryland is responsible for all aspects of the registered apprenticeship system. We're one of about 32 states that manage our own apprenticeship programs on behalf of the U.S. Department of Labor. And we've gone from having some 7,000 apprentices 8 years ago to just under 12,000 today. We have 185 different apprenticeship programs with some 3,500 employers participating at any given time. So it's quite a growing way to approach workforce, especially at a time where there's a lot of emphasis on open positions, underskilled workers, and college debt. It's a great way to build your workforce and to train your own. So I'll pause there and see if you have other questions.
Yeah, Chris. So, very informative. And obviously, some people know exactly how the apprenticeship works. But for the employer, what is actually required of them? How do they get involved with wanting to bring an apprentice onto their team? And how do they go through that process?
Sure. So great question, and happy to answer for the employers that are room. It's really, despite that we're government, I do want to say it's a pretty easy process. Often we can be viewed as government agencies as you might not want to work with us. It can be challenging, but the reality is that it's much simpler. Our sole purpose is to help you either to design and build your own program. It can be as simple as a phone call or email to me or one of my staff, and we'll sit down and help you to build it. Or for companies that may not want to manage all aspects of your own program, our job is to find existing apprenticeship programs for groups of employers that already exist. And again, to reference Minah, who'll be on later, she's one example of a program at Howard Community College where dozens of employers participate in a lot of different apprenticeship programs, ranging from healthcare to IT and cyber and construction management. Or Kelly, the Maryland Tech Council could be a sponsor of a program where you decide to bundle employers into it and you manage the program for them. And that really means you create the occupation that your employers are struggling to fill vacancies in, or they need upskilling in. You'll manage the registration of the apprentices. The employers will hire the apprentices normal. They'll go through a process of making sure they're following a diversity plan. And then the employers are responsible for paying them and sending them to school. And you will be the interface with the Maryland Department of Labor. So you'll handle all the governmental aspects of the program. So those are the two easiest ways for an employer to get involved, is either to create their own or to participate in an existing group program.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. And so I think you have somebody who has a real life story as to what they were able to do within their employment to bring on an apprentice.
Are you referring to one of our employers, right?
Yes.
So, there's real life stories everywhere. And, I think we could spend a lot of time talking about them. And I would encourage everybody to go to our website. And when I'm done talking, I'll drop a link in for you. There's some success stories written. And I will say that when we started this, before I go into the success story, about 95% of our apprentices were in the construction trades, and they have done phenomenal about building these workforce programs over decades and decades and decades. In fact, they've been doing it for well above the time that the U.S. Department of Labor has recognized apprenticeship. So for hundreds of years, they built these programs, and they really have stood the test of time, and they're phenomenal. In the last 6 years or so, we've gone from 96% of our apprentices being from the construction trades to now 15 or 16% are from the non-traditional. And that might be tech, cyber, IT, it might be advanced manufacturing, healthcare. So there's quite a growing workforce. But I think that if I pointed to some examples, I would point to the Baltimore Alliance in Careers in Healthcare to start. In Baltimore City, they received a grant from the Maryland Department of Labor for a considerable sum of money, where they were going to train new Americans, individuals, skilled immigrants that had come from overseas that weren't able to reconnect with the healthcare workforce. As you know, when you transfer in from another country, not everything is seamless. So they built an incumbent worker training program with their participating unions, as well as with the skilled American community, work with the Maryland Department of Labor and some other nonprofit organizations. And since then, they have brought on dozens and dozens and dozens of apprentices with diverse backgrounds, helping people that didn't ever own their first home in the United States to buy their first home, get driver's license, transportations, but essentially leave the service industry and go into skilled occupations in healthcare. They registered this program in 2017, and 6 years later, it's still rolling right along, and they continue to add more healthcare occupations and more hospital employers. So it really shows you just how broad the apprenticeship system can be, and what you want to build, we can help build with you.
That's great. So I want to be fully transparent. Chris and I and my team at the Maryland Tech Council, we did talk to him about the possibility of the Maryland Tech Council becoming an intermediary of sorts to be able to assist in the advancement of apprenticeships with our members as employers to help them to recruit additional employees. And we're working kind of through that process now. There is a list of occupations that Chris had mentioned before that we're going to be working with him and his team on to make sure that we have everything available to offer that resource for our members and our partners across the Maryland Tech Council. So Chris, I just want to thank you so much. There's so much here. I would really offer anybody that has the opportunity to reach out to Chris and his team to talk to them specifically about what an apprenticeship can do for you. It has been our experience that it's not only the recruitment of apprentices and your future employee workforce, but it's the retention as well. So when we're talking about retention of employees in this specific field, people that are involved in a 2, 3, 4 year long apprenticeship program, they have a loyalty to that company and they continue to work their way up into that specific employer's area of expertise. And we've seen that the retention with those employees goes a long way. So Chris, thank you. And we'll maybe go to some questions from the team in a little bit. So Chris, you say www.labor.maryland.gov employment apprenticeship. We'll make sure that we get that link out to the whole field. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So Mary, I want to turn it over to you because I have also an affinity from being at the Department of Labor for the EARN program, Employment Advancement right now, which thanks mainly to you has become a nationwide model for workforce development opportunities, especially with those in underserved communities and entry-level positions to be able to find their own specific career pathway. So I want to thank you for staying with the program for as long as you have from its inception and being the spokesperson for that. And tell us a little bit more about what it means.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Keller, and I am the Special Grants Administrator for the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning at the Maryland Department of Labor. I just want to thank, I don't know if I'm supposed to call you Kelly, but you'll probably always be Secretary Schulz to me, and the Maryland Tech Council for hosting Chris and I today. We're really excited to share out this information with your members. So as part of my portfolio at the department, I oversee several of our high priority initiatives, including our work on homelessness, combating substance use disorder, and most recently our newly acquired $23 million grant that we received from the United States Department of Commerce focused on supporting the offshore wind industry. But today I am here to talk about the EARN Maryland program. As Kelly mentioned, is very near and dear to my heart. It's the first program that I started to work on when I came to the department back in 2013. Before I start though, I just want to give a quick tidbit that many on this call might not know. So EARN was created in 2013 by enabling legislation that went before the Economic Matters Committee. And Secretary Schulz at that time was a member of the House of Delegates and served on that committee. And way back in 2013, she voted in support of EARN Maryland. And just a few years later, found herself serving as secretary at our department, overseeing that very program. So Kelly, I just want to thank you as always for your support. And I'm so excited that you're at the helm for Maryland Tech Council. I know that your members will have every resource available to them related to workforce, whether they like it or not. So I'm going to give a very brief overview of the EARN Maryland program and what it seeks to do. And then I'm going to turn it over to Bruce Spector from Baltimore Cyber, who is one of our EARN grantees. I think it's really important as a public servant. I can say all day that EARN is flexible, it's industry driven, but I think it's really important to hear from somebody that's actually operationalizing it day to day. So I'll turn it over to Bruce when I'm done speaking. So EARN officially launched in 2014. And the impetus for the program really was that employers around the state, regardless of industry or region they were working in, expressed a similar difficulty in finding individuals with the right skill sets to fill their open positions. So obviously at the Department of Labor, that was a big concern for us. So we began holding focus groups around the state with all of our workforce stakeholders, not just employers, to understand why that was happening. And as a result of those focus groups, we found several different trends. The first, and perhaps the most important, is that a key stakeholder seemed to be missing from all of our conversations around workforce development training programs. And believe it or not, that stakeholder was employers. So we found that employers were not at the table early on in developing these training programs, helping to develop them, identifying curriculum, saying what their training needs were. So that was the first problem. And then the second challenge is that there didn't seem to be any coordination among our different stakeholder groups. So community colleges, nonprofit organizations, they weren't talking. So what we found is that we would have a CDL program at the community college, for instance, and then a mile down the road, there would be a nonprofit organization offering that same training, but nobody was talking. There wasn't coordination. So we felt that we could create a program that was more effective and more efficient with our state workforce dollars. So in order to help with those two challenges, EARN Maryland was created. And what EARN does is we fund strategic industry partnerships, also known as SIPs. So to solve with that first problem of employer engagement, every strategic industry partnership that we fund is required to have at least 5 employer partners participating. And what do those employers do? So they come to the table before these programs are created, before there's money, out there, and they identify skills gaps. They help to create a curriculum that is responsive to those needs. They might participate in training once, funding is awarded and there are students in the seats. And then of course, once those students complete, our hope is that those same employers will hire the individuals that complete these programs. And the reason for that is because someone graduating from these programs should have every skill set that that employer identified as necessary to come work for their company. So that is really important. This is an industry-driven model, and that is kind of at the heart of EARN, why the program was created. So to solve the issue of the coordination among the workforce stakeholders, we also require other organizations to participate in EARN. We call these diverse entities. So typically those are nonprofit organizations, community colleges, local workforce boards. And it's funny, as I was scrolling through who is on this call today, of course, we have Kirkland from Arundel Workforce Development Corporation. We have Ed Roberts from CCBC, a community college. I saw Health Tech Alley, which is a small nonprofit represented. Jessica from Perscola. So that kind of gives you a sense. All of those organizations are EARN grantees. So you have a workforce board, a community college, a large nonprofit, a small nonprofit. So our diverse entities are incredibly important in the success of the EARN program. So every partnership has a lead applicant. I know a question that may come up is, can an employer apply for this funding directly? One thing that we have learned as a result of the implementation of the EARN program for the last 10 or so years is that employers, while they're critical to the success of the program, don't necessarily have the time to run an EARN partnership. So of course, it's state government. There always has to be reporting, right? There are, other partners that have to be corralled. So typically when we look at kind of the formation and what an EARN partnership looks like, it is, that nonprofit or community college or local workforce board serving as kind of the convener. And then employers, of course, are able to tap into all of the great benefits of having a pipeline ready to go. So let's see, what else? I think something really important about EARN, again, is it's industry driven, but it's also intentionally very flexible. So that flexibility extends to the individuals that are able to benefit. A lot of times in our workforce programs, there's a very target population. An individual that's unemployed that lives in this zip code or has this barrier that needs to be addressed. But with EARN, we take a really broad perspective for who should benefit from this program. So one important point is that, of course, we're serving individuals that are unemployed or underemployed that have barriers to employment. But another key demographic that we're serving actually is incumbent workers. A lot of times workforce funding is limiting when it comes to upskilling the current workforce, but we feel it's very important as a program that is industry driven. If an employer identifies, for instance, that they need to upskill someone on their team, but their training budget may not allow, that we should grant funding to help them get, someone that's, entry level, get a mid-level skill, a mid-level certification so they continue on their career pathway. So that's an important point. And then I think the other point is the flexibility of what funding can cover. Again, when we're talking about EARN and the funding, it's almost easier for me to talk about what funding cannot cover, because we can cover anything from instructor costs, barrier removal, supportive services, materials and supplies. We can pay fines and fees to help someone's license be reinstated, cover transportation costs for a certain period. Really, the only thing that EARN can't cover is building a building or a huge piece of equipment that's going to last longer than the life of the grant. Other than that, we ask our partners to be creative and put a budget together that really reflects what their needs are. Okay, how am I doing on time? Okay.
I think you're doing great.
Okay. So currently we have 65 partnerships across the state. And I just want to note that those are not focused solely on, tech or life sciences. But I would be remiss, I think, if I didn't mention that we do have very targeted funding for cyber and IT. Beginning in 2018, we started to receive kind of a carve out of $3 million specific for cyber and IT annually. So we do have about a third of our partners are focused in that space, which has been really great to see. Okay, I will wrap up here just by saying, I hope that the question on all of your minds right now is how you can get involved in EARN. And there are really two ways. The first, and probably the most immediate and easiest way, is to connect with one of our existing partnerships. So you'll hear from Bruce Spector in a minute. I mentioned Perspolis, CCBC, they're all on the call. So we do have partnerships that are training right now every day. And depending on what your needs are, we can play matchmaker and get you connected with one of those partnerships. And then again, back to the flexibility, if there's a partnership or we can identify someone that's currently training in what your needs are, we want our partnerships to be nimble and responsive to industry demand so they can kind of shift. And, we can help identify a partner that would be able to meet those demands for you. And then the second way, and this is less immediate, would be to form your own partnership, right? So the Maryland Tech Council could apply. You as an employer could pull together 4 other partners at least, and some training providers, and apply through our competitive solicitation process. That process normally happens about every 12 to 18 months or so. And we do expect that the next solicitation will be late spring, early summer. So if you want to get on our distribution list so that you can learn about upcoming opportunities, please reach out to me, mary.keller@maryland.gov, and I'll drop that in the chat. And then I promise, I'm so sorry, Kelly, this is the last thing I just want to run through is our numbers quickly. So since the program began, over 8,000 individuals who were un or underemployed have obtained employment, and we have helped over 11,000 incumbent workers receive training, which we're really excited about. Our grants average in size from about $50,000 to over $600,000. I would say the average there, the sweet spot is about $200,000. And they are 2-year grants. And then lastly, sorry, I could talk about EARN all day. Our return on investment. So this is state funding. It goes in front of the legislature every year. So we obviously have to prove that it's successful. And to do that, we partner with Beacon at Salisbury University. And they do a study with all of our data to come up with a return on investment. And the thing that I think we're most proud of is that their recent study, which was completed last year, found that for every state dollar invested into the EARN program, an economic impact of $17.43 is realized, which is incredible. And it's all due to our fantastic partners that are out there every day implementing these programs. So I will, before I turn it over to Bruce, just thank everyone on the call that is an EARN grantee or is participating in EARN. This program wouldn't be what it is without all of you. So thank you so much. I'm sorry if I droned on a bit, but with that, I'll turn it over to Bruce.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Kelly, for having us on the panel. I can tell you as a EARN grantee, we've been doing this since 2017, and it's a phenomenal program. For the employers that are on the call, the first question that we get when we form the partnerships that Mary talked about is, how can you do this? In other words, it's a phenomenal program for the employer because the employer gets trained talent that's dedicated to what they need. And it doesn't cost the employers any money to actually be part of the program, as well as the students. It's completely funded by the grant, so the students pay no money. Now, there's a lot of sweat equity I'll talk about in a minute, what they have to put in, but the costs are borne by the grant. And as Mary said, the reason they can do that is the return is phenomenal. It's an 18-to-1 return. So the program has legs, and it's been running since 2013. And I just want to give you a brief summary of what we did to give you an idea how we put it together. And then, of course, I'll answer questions. Our organization were our defense contractors coming out of the intelligence community that were focused on information assurance. And we accompanied the state on a trade mission to Israel. And the Governor Hogan at that time was looking for ways to do economic development in Maryland. And the Israelis had this neat concept. They see a lot of threats. So they stored the threats in a library. And then they created a network simulator and they ran the threats on a simulator. And that's how they trained their cyber warriors. Well, we talked to the Department of Labor and we said, if they're training warriors, maybe we can train unemployed people to get them into the cyber world. And we brought that technology and we put it in Baltimore. and we received an EARN grant. And we worked very closely with Kelly and with Kelly at Labor at the time, and Mary, who was just phenomenal, helped us get started. She explained to us how the SIP, the Strategic Industry Partnership, works. We had 5 or 6 defense contractors that were screaming for talent. In Maryland, currently, there's 23,000 unfilled positions. We don't have to create the jobs, we have to fill them. And the problem is the universities and the community colleges are doing a great job of getting these students ready at the base level, but they don't have a lot of vocational experience. So the EARN program from the entry-level position was more of a capstone training. So they actually got them ready to start work based upon what the immediate needs of the employers were. And we take that training and we infuse it into the training modules that we provide. Also, the employers do much more than placement. They actually meet with us on a quarterly basis and let us know what their current requirements are. And we develop the training every quarter, and it changes based upon the threats. Cyber is a very dynamic and very fluid industry. So what's current today will change in 90 days. It changes greatly in terms of what the entry-level requirements are. The various threats, the various governance requirements. It's very dynamic. So the inputs of the employers are of a big help to us. Now, based upon putting that partnership together, we develop modules and we develop programs, and we've actually trained in the past 5 years about 1,000 trainees, and we've gotten 920 or so full-time positions in the cyber business. These are not just only well-paying jobs, but they're careers. And as Mary said, the program not only does the entry level, but we actually work with our incumbents that are in the program, the people that actually have our alumni, and then we actually further their training. So if they came in at entry level where we gave them an A+, a Network Plus, and Security Plus, maybe after 3 or 4 years in the business, we actually offer them CISSP training, which is a much higher level training program, and it improves the actual ecosystem performance in cyber for the state of Maryland. So, and our employers love it because they get high trained performance people, and as the requirements change and their contracts change, they now have personnel that meet those requirements. So it's been a very successful program for the employers that joined our SIP. We constantly are recruiting employers to join our SIP because they give us the input and keep us current. And the fact that we have so much alumni, that feeds on giving us greater recruiting. So we have over a 400-person waiting list to do the training now, and we have requisitions from our employers that we're filling at roughly somewhere near 800 to 900 a year. So we're very excited about the future, and we're filling the needs, and it's been a phenomenal program for us. So I'm happy to answer any questions or answer any more data I can provide.
Thank you so much, Bruce and Mary, for an extraordinary. Mary, it's hard to get through EARN without talking all like that. I mean, there's just so much there. I know I feel the same way. I could talk about apprenticeships and EARN all day long just because they're so critical to our workforce and our employers who are out there. I do want to open it up to some questions. The chat is now open if you have a question. I saw a couple of people put a question in the Q&A box, so I can do those as well. But Chris, just really quickly, somebody asked about how the K through 12 education is going to impact the apprenticeship program, and if we see any impact on that right now, and maybe talk about the youth apprenticeship program and how that feeds into what you're doing.
Sure, absolutely. So the youth apprenticeship pilot, which started several years ago up in Frederick and Washington County, ran for a couple of years. It did phenomenal. It proved to be a great test case of high school students and their ability to combine work and education in a similar pathway to a registered apprenticeship program. That has since been expanded by the blueprint, which came out of the Kirkland bill, and the blueprint for education calls for an ever increasing number of high school students by the year 2030 to participate in a high school level registered apprenticeship program or to receive industry level certifications and credentials. the impact on that, I think it's going to be phenomenal, all positive. We're seeing more and more students getting involved in formal work and learn programs through youth apprenticeship, which I'll use that as our acronym for this conversation. We have almost 500 students across the state participating. 22 of our 24 school systems are participating, with conversations ongoing with our last two. The blueprint has an aggressive goal of getting well over, I think it's 45% by the year 2030. So we're going to be talking about tens of thousands of students participating in registered apprenticeship programs at the high school level. So this is going to be an enormous opportunity for businesses to, again, look at the workforce, look at the entry qualifications, look at the occupations that they have available, and how do we connect with the local school systems and those students, their parents, their counselors, their teachers, to get them on board for these opportunities to begin a career. And the sky is really the limit. In that career path, we're going to be looking with the local school systems to combine the education that you as a business determine is needed for that occupation, so that by the time the student graduates, they have at least 450 paid hours of employment with you as the employer, and they've received the equivalent of the first year of the education of that occupation. So hopefully we've not only filled an employment gap for the business, we're putting meaningful work on the table for the students, but as they graduate, their career path may have been decided. They may choose to stay with your company, continue a formal apprenticeship for a couple of years and be a fully qualified worker for you. Or it could even be that they've worked for you and you worked for them and they realized, hey, I want to join the military. I want to be a firefighter, a police officer. But we put them on a path where they've had real world experience, and it's going to work for the business and the student to determine the next steps of their career path. So I'm super excited about it. And I can envision a time where thousands and thousands of students are working for our employers across the state.
So Chris, just to follow up on that, because I know many of our members at the Tech Council, many of them do maybe summer internships. What's the difference between a summer internship and an apprenticeship?
Some of it might be phrasing, but a lot of it is also the perception of what goes with each individual term. An internship is not necessarily a job. It's not necessarily the start of a career pathway, and it's not even necessarily paid, and it doesn't have to include a requirement of education. Once you cross the path, cross the street, if you will, and you get into apprenticeship, they are employment opportunities. These students, whether it's an adult or a high school student, they're paid. They're getting a progressive wage. They're learning for you. And there's a commitment from both the business and the apprentice that if all goes well, they're going to be retained. And Kelly, you mentioned the retention rates. Right now, our retention rates for apprenticeship is 91 to 94% retainment a year after the apprenticeship program ends. That's a federal stat. In Maryland, we think it's much higher. We're running our own data now. But the big difference again is you're employing them, you're making a commitment to that person as an apprentice, that there won't be an end of an internship and then you go back to school or you go back home or find your own job somewhere else. The apprenticeship is their investment in you and your investment of your time in them, so that you will stay on board upon the end of the apprenticeship and be a value-added asset to the business.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's critical. And I think starting at the high school level. So thank you for that question, because it really does train our future workers of this great workforce to be involved in constant, maybe lifelong learning. And that's kind of what we advance in workforce development and career training overall. So I'm going to answer Tim Culp says, what are some of the best practices that you've seen for employers to get the most benefit from the EARN program? For example, how do we as an employer ensure that we set up the most successful environment? Mary?
Sure. Thanks, Tim, for the question. I'll take a stab at this, and then Bruce, since you're doing this on the ground, I would just ask you to jump in and fill in any gaps that I miss. I think, Tim, one of the best practices from my perspective is, again, flexibility, right? So as an employer, you're going to have a lot of other priorities, right, than participating in a program like this. So I think what we tell our partners, our lead applicants, is it's really important to not require, if you will, a level of participation. There are going to be some employers that want to come to every single meeting and talk every single week about the students in the pipeline and hire them. There's going to be other employers that just want to, talk to you at the beginning, tell you what they need, and then check in every now and then and see if there are students ready for hire or for consideration. So I think not putting a level of requirement on an employer is really important to keep them engaged. And then I think bringing in new employers consistently is important to keep things fresh, make sure that, you're being responsive to industry demand. And so you're not oversaturating one single employer with, 30 students that are ready to be placed. So I think that's an important component. Bruce, did I miss anything from your perspective on best practices with employer engagement?
No, I think you're right on. I think just to supplement what you're saying, what an employer can do to get more engaged is he may want to actually observe some of the training. He may want to observe some of the practices of the SIP. And we do that at Baltimore Cyber by meeting quarterly. And then we have a range. So we actually have observer stations. The benefit that the employer gets is that he really gets to vet the applicant before the hires. You can make sure it's really what you want. It's the right atmosphere, the right motivation of the hiree to work with the group that you're looking to put in place. That's probably what our employers enjoy the most. Is it's kind of like an NFL training combine, where you can kind of see the performance before you actually put the contract out. That seems to make our employers very happy. The other thing is the inputs that the employers can give the SIP about what the requirements are, and not just what the actual threats are, in our case in cyber, but also the certifications and the requirements that you have from a contracting perspective. We're a lot of us are government contractors in our SIP, and the government has these requirements that not only do you have to meet technical requirements, A+ network security, CSSP, but you have socioeconomic requirements. You have to have a certain number of certain diversity characteristic. You have to people of color. You have to have gender. So if you inform the SIP of what those requirements are, the SIP can move quickly to try and make sure that we meet those requirements. So that interface and that dialogue helps us help you.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm just going to answer Ursula's question and Lindsay's question about how everybody gets involved. And so I will just say, again, there will be very specific programs that are currently in existence for partners to join an existing EARN program. And of course, you can reach out to Mary and we'll have all of that contact information. Mary, I think you're going to be kind of busy after today, but she'll make sure.
Already busy, Kelly.
I know, trust me, I know how busy Mary is. But I think for those members that are on the call, if there are existing partnerships that they could become acquainted with, then we'll do that. And we'll just we'll have them reach out to you individually. But also there's been a couple of questions about incumbent workers, and both apprenticeships and the EARN program help with incumbent workers. And so, Mary, I'm going to have you talk just a little bit about the assistance with the EARN for incumbent workers, maybe skilling up, as we call it. And then, Chris, same with you. And someone can be a current employee and start in a different career pathway with their current employer.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we hear resoundingly from employers that obviously they need, a pipeline for that entry level. But as they hire folks for those entry level positions, they're promoting individuals, and sometimes those individuals need training on leadership, or, for cyber, they might need, the CMMC or kind of a more mid-level certification. And for us, as we're focused on economic mobility, that's a really important component of the program. We don't want somebody to just start in an entry-level position and stay there. We want them to continue on a career pathway. So the incumbent training is essential for us to not only help employers, but to help the individuals that are going through these EARN programs. I see Tamar asked a question about how the instruction is typically delivered for incumbent workers. And I think, I could talk all day about EARN, and then at the same time, I feel like my answers to every question are, well, it depends. And I think it depends because, again, we are looking to the partnerships to tell us how they can operationalize this. So it really depends on what works for the employers as far as sending their current staff to training. I'm thinking of the Maryland Manufacturing Extension Partnership, where they're upskilling, obviously, folks that work on a plant floor, right? And they have said, we can't send a machinist out for a week of training because, that's going to affect our bottom line. So they do all virtual training, self-paced for their incumbent workers, and that works well for them. Whereas you might have a large tech company who wants to send 5 incumbents to get a certification that maybe is happening at night at the local community college. So it really depends on the partnership and what works for the employer partners that are participating as far as sending their existing workers to training. And again, we ask the partners to tell us what that looks like because we recognize that it's important for them to drive the train, not us.
Sure. Thank you, Mary. Chris?
So I would say fundamentally or philosophically, there's really no difference between earned and registered apprenticeship. If you have an employee that's been working we can make up a position, they've been working at your front desk, they're doing reception, they're doing data entry, but they're coming to work every day, they show aptitude, and it's somebody that you want to retain. Well, eventually that employee is going to realize that they have aptitude and they're going to begin to look elsewhere. What better way than to invest a little bit in an incumbent worker, upskill them, move them to the next highest position in your organization? They benefit from the move up, from the increase in pay, responsibility. You benefit from retaining an employee that's already proven they can stay with you and they want to be a part of your organization. And then you get to backfill that front office position and hopefully, as time goes on, upskill that employee. An apprenticeship or earn, they're really built the same way, designed to help you with retention, lowering your cost, offsetting it with what was available for state or federal funding, and to bring on new employees that hopefully you'll retain there as well. So I would say that there's really no philosophical difference there, Kelly, and that's how I would look at it.
Great, thank you. And Ed Roberts, welcome from Baltimore Community College. Appreciate your questions on the chat. So Ed wants to know about the overwhelming amount of paperwork and support that employers might need in order to get involved with either earn or apprenticeships. Mary, I think you had mentioned it, like every good government program, there's a level of bureaucracy and report requirements. And Chris, it's obviously an unknown world for many employers out there as to how to get started. I'll just start off this, and I know we have to jump to our next panel in 2 minutes, but that's one of the main reasons, Ed, thank you for asking, why the Maryland Tech Council wants to get involved in both of these programs with our members, because we are being trained ourselves in how to be able to alleviate some of that stress on the members that want to become part of these programs. And it'll take a little time for us to get up and running, but there is some, and there are intermediaries like the Maryland Tech Council out there that can help with that management of the paperwork. So Chris, I'll just talk to you first about that, because I know that it can be confusing for those that are just entering into the possibility.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, in terms of government, this is the most friendly program when it comes to paperwork. And I would definitely say it's not an overwhelmingly high amount of paperwork, but that paperwork is valuable. And the reason it's valuable is we give a high level presentation on what apprenticeship is, but what it comes with is state level recognition that you've completed this apprenticeship program, that it's industry recognized, that it's been vetted, and that it's been approved, and it contains anything that might be required by the occupation, licensing, certification. We have built your apprenticeship program to meet what your industry requires. And then just as importantly, if not more importantly, it's recognized by all the remaining states and territory to include the U.S. Department of Labor. So that paperwork is no different than going to college. We would never accept a college or a high school diploma from somebody if it wasn't vetted and didn't come with a certain amount of paperwork and collaboration. We want to know that our students are going through a certain rigorous amount of education, that they're doing a certain amount of work, a certain amount of hours. Apprenticeship programs are built the same way. That's just as valuable if one employer in South Dakota has a layoff, they close, they move operations to Maryland, and you begin to pull apprentices that were formerly from South Dakota. You want to know that they went through a program that you yourself in Maryland would have approved. And that's exactly what we do. We make sure that you've met all of those requirements. So is there paperwork? Absolutely, there's paperwork. And there's going to be paperwork for earn, but you have Mary and her team, you have me and my team, and then you have our intermediaries like Minah from Howard Community College or Kelly from the Maryland Tech Council that are designed and they're in place to help to really take up a big chunk of that paperwork, interface with the government, and make sure that your program is, again, vetted and of the highest quality for your entire industry, not just one employer. So I think it's a great question from Ed. I'm glad he asked it. And I think we're going to do everything we can to continue to make it minimally invasive to the employer.
Thank you. And I can attest to the professionalism and the expertise of the folks at the Department of Labor that honestly are really there to make you successful and to make our workforce the best that it can be in the nation. So it's time for us to move on, but Chris and Mary and Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit, please stay on and listen a little bit to our local workforce opportunities that are out there, but I can't thank each of you enough for helping. And again, to all of our members, the contact information is going to be there and distributed to you so you can reach out to them personally. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
So now I'm going to switch gears because, we all have our local jurisdictions and those that we want to have specific structured types of workforce opportunities, maybe in our own counties. And we have a wonderful group that has joined us today. And I'm just going to do a very quick introduction and then turn it on over. But I'm going to introduce first Kirkland Murray. He is the president and CEO of Arundel Workforce Development Corporation. He also just so happens to be the president of the Maryland Workforce Association. So he's in the hot seat today. Next, I'm going to just introduce you to Francine Trout. So Fran is the director of the Howard County Office of Workforce Development. She is the accountability factor for Kirk. She's the vice president of the Maryland Workforce Association. Great to see you again, Fran. And we have Anthony Featherstone, who is the executive director of WorkSource Montgomery Incorporated. And then we have Minah, who is the vice president of Workforce Innovation and Strategic Partnerships at Howard Community College. I want to point out that we were supposed to have Chauncy, who is the director of the Baltimore County Director of Economic and Workforce Development, but due to illness, not able to attend. So, Kirk, tell us about what your association does and how it's different from the state programs, and in some ways very similar to the state programs, and specifically about Anne Arundel.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kelly, and thank you to the Maryland Tech Council for hosting this event. And Kelly, thank you for all that you've done as a state legislator, as the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Commerce to promote workforce development. As we know that, workforce is very important, for Maryland to stay competitive. Businesses to grow and be competitive in a global market, they need a skilled workforce. And that's what the Maryland Workforce Association and the 13 Workforce Development Directors do day in, day out to help businesses to stay competitive in a global economy by making sure they have a pipeline of skilled workers. So the Maryland Workforce Association is an association of the 13 workforce development directors throughout the state of Maryland. We're broken down to different jurisdictions. Some of us are single county jurisdictions like Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, and Howard County, but some of them are multiple counties like the three far western counties, Allegheny, Washington, and Garrett County. That are workforce, that are one workforce area. But we're all here, we're the boots on the ground. We're the ones that are here every day working with both businesses and job seekers to make that connection. And to Ed's question about how you connect to apprenticeship and earn grants, reach out to your local workforce board. That's what we're here for. Many of us, as Mary mentioned, and around the Workforce Development Corporation, we are a earn grantee. As far as apprenticeship, we've been promoting apprenticeships through our businesses and helping our businesses with that paperwork to get connected to an apprenticeship or start their own apprenticeship. So whereas we work together, the 13 of us, we have similar services, which I'll talk about in a second, but all of us are flexible and deal with the demand in our local community. We deal with the workforce needs of our local community. We bring together partners, businesses, and job seekers to solve workforce solutions. All of us are led by a local workforce board. We're mandated to have a local workforce board by legislation. That board is made up of 51% businesses. So it's demand driven. It's really there to help make sure that businesses have the skilled workforce that they need. The other 20% comes from organized labor. A lot of these are the apprenticeship programs that Chris has referred to that are on our local boards. The rest are made up of other partners like economic development, education, both the K through 12 system and community colleges, and then state and local organizations that represent targeted populations, specific populations, and also some of us have community and faith-based organizations. The workforce boards, they're there to bring solutions, to help understand what the needs are of businesses and drive innovative solutions. For example, at our most recent local workforce board in Anne Arundel County, we had our director of transportation come in and talk about workforce transportation and the needs for that, and come up with innovative solutions to make sure that transportation aligns to the needs of businesses, making sure that there's transportation that align to different shifts and can connect their workers to job opportunities. But the main thing that we do is really provide services to our businesses. This is everything from starting with building a skilled pipeline of current and future workforce that they need. And a lot of this is done through sector partnerships. For example, in Anne Arundel County, we've identified 5 high growth industries in the county. We call them HITCH: healthcare, IT, transportation, construction, and hospitality. Each of those industries have a collaborative of multiple businesses within that industry that get together, identify workforce challenges. We ask our businesses to guide the conversation and come up with solutions, similar to what Mary was talking about with EARN. It's business-led to do this. We follow the U.S. Chamber talent pipeline management philosophy of businesses really being the champions of this and really guiding this, with our partners coming in and implementing the solutions that businesses have come up with. In IT and other industries in Anne Arundel County, over the last several years, we've added over 500 individuals to the pipeline in those high growth industries. Many of that has been funded through a program like EARN. We also work with individual businesses to provide services to them. Those services are anything for connecting them to the workforce that they need, individuals who are looking for it. In Anne Arundel County, we help fill job postings. We have 82% of the clients that we refer over to businesses actually get an interview, because we take the time to make sure that we understand what that business is looking for, and then take the time to screen candidates and provide the right candidate to that business. We also have multiple hiring events that we can do. We can do industry-focused hiring events. For example, we're working with our partners at the Maryland Department of Labor to do a IT tech hiring event at Fort Meade next month in March. We can also do a customized hiring event for your business. If you as a business is looking to hire individuals, we could do a customized. In Anne Arundel County, we work very closely with Southwest. They've used our Career Center to do their recruitment and hiring. We can provide businesses with labor market data so they can stay competitive, make sure that they're offering a competitive wage, and also look at some of the workforce trends within their industry. We also provide services to business to help them to retain their workers. As Chris talked about, apprenticeship is a great way of doing that, but there are other tools that we can provide to help businesses retain their workers. And then if for some reason you need to downsize your workforce, we can provide services to make sure that we help you do that the most effective way possible, that limit the amount of time that your employees will be on unemployment, which also will limit your costs. We also can help you train your future and current workforce by tools like we've talked about, on-the-job training, work and learn. Apprenticeship is the gold standard for work and learn, but there's also on-the-job training where you may look to hire someone and they may have 90% of the skills that you're looking for. But if you're willing to train them on those 10% skills, we can offer you a savings on that cost of employee. We can reimburse you up to 50% of the cost of that employee while they're still training. We can look at other ways of customized training. We know in the IT field, a lot of the businesses do their own training. We can help subsidize some of that cost of that training for you. But also, we really work with job seekers to help prepare them, making sure that they have the skills that you're looking for. We're talking about both the hard skills and those soft skills. We work with different targeted populations of individuals or different groups of individuals, starting with our young people. I think we mentioned a little bit about Blueprint. The Blueprint law requires that the local school system provides $62 per student to the workforce boards to do career counseling. The reason why that is because your local workforce board and the 13 workforce development directors, we're the ones that know what those demands are in the local area. And we can help prepare those kids to start on a career path, starting with career exploration, all the way up to making sure that they're on a pathway to either go to college or they're ready to go into the workforce. in Anne Arundel County and in Howard County, not to steal from my good friend to the west, but we work together at Fort Meade and working with transitioning service members, active duty spouses, and veterans to make sure they have the skills to go along. Fran and I, we've done several projects where you have a service member who's leaving, who's been working at Fort Meade, been doing a lot of IT. They're looking to transition out of the military, and all they need is a certification to be able to go right into the commercial field. So we've done that. We've provided that assistance to them. We work with highly skilled dislocated workers who have lost their job at no fault of their own, and prepare them with the most recent credentials so that they can get reemployed. We've also worked with Fran and I, and I'm sure Anthony also in the other workforce areas, a lot of us do high-end certifications in IT, project management, contracting, all those different things. So one of the biggest myths about the workforce development system is that we only work with entry point or low-skilled workers. We work with all workers, all individuals who are looking to advance in their career. So we're here to help you. Before I turn it over to my colleague in Howard County and the vice president of the Maryland Workforce Association, Fran, I want to leave you with one point. My new vice president of business and industry always keeps asking me, what is the value that we bring to businesses? So the value that the public workforce system brings to businesses is that we save you time and money to make sure that you get the right candidate, the right employee, the employee with the skills, both the hard skills and the soft skills. So with that said, I will turn it over to my good friend, Francine Trout.
Good morning, everybody. And Kirk, thank you. That was a great introduction to our system. So thank you. You did a great job. Guys, I just want to talk to you a little bit about apprenticeship from the local level. Chris talked a lot about how the state works with apprenticeship, and we work very closely with the state, but there are a little bit of differences in what we do locally. Some of what we can do to help and support our businesses is we can recruit and screen candidates for apprenticeship. We are all in offices where people actually walk through our doors, and we have the opportunity to talk with them, or our staff has talked with them. So sometimes we can just come across somebody who would be a perfect match. Where our office is located, we have a company right next door who looks for apprentices. And oftentimes we can just send the person right over there. And a number of folks have started their apprenticeship and have been hired that way. In some cases, we may be able to contribute funding for the on-the-job learning portion at the beginning of the apprenticeship, or for the related instruction. So that's something that we can do at the local level across the workforce system. We help our businesses and partners through the program development process and the paperwork. We do work very closely with Chris and his team, and our goal is to make it easier on the businesses. We all want to make it easy on you guys. We don't want you to get stuck in the paperwork vacuum. So we will do our best to support that. And we can also connect our businesses with local training providers to provide the related instruction. I'll talk a little bit specifically about Howard County, but we work very closely with my friend Minah Wu.
Fran, I think you accidentally just went on mute.
I did. That's good to do with the Tech Council, right? Sorry, guys. We can connect you guys with funding opportunities. If it is not through our offices, then through the state and other funding opportunities that exist across the state of Maryland. We can connect folks with the state education training providers. So it makes your lives a little bit easier as you're trying to form your apprenticeship. As Kirk and Chris mentioned, there are pre-apprenticeship programs at the high school levels. And a lot of times the young folks get started in a career, they identify that they like it, and then can move into an apprenticeship, and they already have some background. One of the things I'm not sure if Chris spoke about is the return on investment. For businesses, it is $1.54 for every dollar spent on apprenticeship, which I find very impressive. There is increased retention, And for a moment, I'm going to put on my parent hat. When a young person or an adult goes through an apprenticeship, they come out of it without any debt. So they are not coming out with the same. And I think I just did it again. So young people come out without any debt, which is wonderful. In Howard County, we have dedicated apprenticeship staff. We hired somebody onto our team whose job it is to work with businesses and to work with individuals with apprenticeships. She's spent probably the past 6 months really learning about apprenticeships and what the process is, has been mentored by Chris and some of his staff and our community partners. But she is somebody that is local and on the ground that can work with businesses in developing apprenticeships, connecting and assisting with the paperwork. A lot of what we've done locally in Howard County is we've tried to set the stage over the past several years by hosting outreach events for both businesses and for job seekers, where we bring groups together and highlight the benefits of apprenticeships for each group. We've done it in general, and then we've done some industry-specific events. We've done some for the tech industry. We've done some for the logistics industry, so that like businesses can be together and hear the benefits of apprenticeship and also network together if they want to start a collective apprenticeship. We held our first bilingual event this year. We were very proud of it. It was in English and Spanish, but because there were multiple languages, we had job seekers who have come to this country with many skills from Afghanistan. I think we had from France, so that they can help fill some of the workforce needs and gaps in our country and get into the apprenticeship program. We also highlighted women in apprenticeship and had industry panelists talk about how apprenticeships have benefited them. In Howard County, our dream is to really have a systems approach to apprenticeship. Those of us involved with apprenticeship, we get together once a month, talk about what's new, and it creates a no wrong door. So if somebody is interested in youth apprenticeship, they can talk with pretty much anyone in Howard County who is involved with apprenticeship, and we can get you connected and give you some preliminary information. So same thing with the college. You can talk with me if you're interested in related instruction, and I have a fairly good idea of what is going on at Howard Community College as far as that is concerned, and can make that connection for you. We have extensive relationships with community organizations, which is very helpful for outreach for talent. I will be honest, we are under a 3% unemployment rate in Howard County, so we depend on our partners to help us with recruitment of the workforce to support our businesses. And again, we can also help with funding or funding opportunities for youth and for adults. The one last item I would like to talk with you about is our summer youth programs that we have across the state. All of us host youth from 14 to 24 to assist them with learning about the workforce, some career development opportunities, but mostly employment opportunities. This allows for youth to assist businesses with some special projects they may have, and it allows the youth in our communities to obtain that employment experience. The other thing that it really helps with is a business may find a youth who they really like and hire them. And so they already have someone that has received some training. Oh, and the most important thing I forgot to mention is that we pay for it. So while the youth is working at your business, we're paying their salary during the summer youth program. Anybody have any questions on this part?
You know what, Fran, I think we're going to hold questions until we finish, everyone. Kirk, if that's okay with you, and then we can just take some questions when the presenters have presented. Is that okay? Perfect.
So then I will turn it over to my friend in Montgomery County, Anthony Featherstone.
All right, thanks, Fran. It's always good to go after your two leaders within your organization at the Maryland Workforce Association. I think Kirk and Fran, you did a really good job at giving an overview of the system and what we do, as well as what we do with apprenticeships. So, I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about what the boards are doing to meet the needs of businesses, specifically with recovery funds. Working with the State Department of Labor, as well as some of our local governments, the boards were privileged to receive American Rescue Plan Act funds, more commonly referred to as ARPA. And we have a theme in Montgomery County that we want to meet the needs of businesses together. And I think what Fran and Kirk spoke about was our public workforce system. But we know that the workforce ecosystem is larger in each of our respective counties. It includes economic development. It includes government. It includes for-profit. It includes public schools. It includes post-secondary education. And it includes nonprofit. And in Montgomery County, the nonprofit community and workforce development is really vast. One thing that we noticed was that there are over 150 organizations providing direct services to businesses in Montgomery County. And anytime you have a strength that's so strong, it can sometimes present as a weakness. So we really wanted to use our ARPA funds to turn our biggest strength, which is the high level of assets, to an even greater strength, which is a high level of assets with a level of coordination that matches. So what we did in Montgomery County is we did an asset map because we want to meet the needs of businesses together. We want to make sure that when we walk out of your door as a business owner, that somebody else is not walking in and having the same conversation. So we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes with all of these organizations to make sure that there's a system working together to serve you as our businesses. So step one with any system is to figure out who makes up the system. And that's exactly how we identified the over 150 organizations that provide direct services to you, our business community. And although it's not intentional, when you have so many organizations doing great work, it could create a level of competition versus a level of collaboration. So that's what we wanted to make sure we did with our ARPA funds. On one end is we built our ecosystem behind the scenes to serve and meet the needs of businesses. So we took the asset map, which is a 200-page document. You're free to read that document at your leisure. But if you're like me and you like the easy button, then you'll want to look at our electronic locator. And it's a locator of who does what with whom and for who when it comes to our business community. And it's a tool for our residents so that they can find, when it relates to proximity as well, organizations that provide workforce development services. It's a tool where workforce practitioners can connect, can leverage resources, can develop partnerships and develop synergies. And it's also a tool for the business community where you can find who does workforce development that relates to your business model. And so we did the map, and we did the inventory. We created a e-service locator, but we wanted to take it to the next step. These 150 organizations that do really good work, we wanted to make sure that there were no gaps that were left unfilled. And from that, we created our workforce recovery network, which is a network of almost 30 providers that are providing training and employment services to meet the needs of our businesses. Specifically to those in bio and information technology, we created partnerships related to tech with companies like the ASM Education Center in Montgomery County. It's an Iranian American family-owned IT training business, and they do a great job at training our Afghanistan refugees, which we're a super diverse county, and we're welcoming to a lot of Afghan refugees, and they're doing a great job at training them up to get their A+ Network Plus Security Plus certifications through CompTIA, and putting them to work in a quick period. And that's just one example of the network of providers that's working together, sharing information, leveraging resources, having one voice, so that if we are working with a business when we don't necessarily have the talent to help you meet your need, then we can reach out behind the scenes to our partners who are doing training and employment programs to get the referral to you, so that that vacancy that you have can be filled with somebody who's qualified and that can grow within your organization. And so that's one of the things that we've done with our recovery or ARPA funds to help you meet your needs behind the scenes as an ecosystem. We listen to a lot of our business partners across every spectrum, including the tech and cybersecurity spectrum. And we wanted to make sure that we stood up new programs that were responsive. One of the programs that we have up and going right now, and it's been up and running since November of 2021, is our GROW program. GROW stands for Grant Relief for Onboarding Workers. We know that we rounded the curve on the pandemic, but recovery is still a thing. And we wanted to make sure that the GROW program was in direct response to businesses who were recovering through hiring. So there's a dual track when it comes to eligibility. If you are a Montgomery County business that has been impacted by the pandemic and you are hiring and looking to recover, you can be eligible for a GROW grant. If you are not a Montgomery County business and you are hiring an unemployed or underemployed individual that was impacted by the pandemic, you can also be eligible for a GROW grant. The grants are up to $100,000 per employer to recover through hiring. On the back end, we've seen employers use the grants for payroll, for paying bills, for retention incentives, for referral incentives, for incumbent workforce that are referring for fulfilling current positions. I see our Director of Communications is online. She dropped the link to the GROW grant in the chat. But it's been an effective program that's helped put hundreds of Montgomery County residents back to work and serve over in excess of 100 local businesses that are recovering through hiring. I think last but not least, won't go through all of the programs, but we also utilize recovery funding to purchase a learning management system that's available to all small businesses of all sizes, but we typically see smaller size businesses utilize the system. The system is in place for businesses who don't have the infrastructure and don't have the learning management system in-house to provide as a service, a development service for the incumbent workforce. You can learn everything from basic computer skills to your compliance trainings when it comes to HR to hundreds of skill certification tracks. There's also a new function when it comes to certification tracks as it pertains to project management, your Network Plus, A Plus, Security Plus, your suite of CompTIA certifications, where if your incumbent workforce gets to a certain point where they finish the training, there'll be a paid certification program that they can enter so that the workforce board will pay for those certifications. So this is just another tool that's available to those who are unemployed, but it's also available to local businesses. And we've seen businesses take advantage to help upskill their incumbent workforce and so on. And then there's also, a few other programs that I'll touch on lightly that we all offer. There's on-the-job training. If you are hiring one of the participants referred by the Workforce Development Board, the short version is that we'll work together with you to help develop a training plan and subsidize those wages to the tune of 50 to 90%. Depending on the complexity of the skill level, it's a case-by-case thing as far as how long or exactly how much those training contracts will total. But it's something that we think is super advantageous to local businesses, and all of the workforce boards offer through our business solutions or business services teams. And my colleagues mentioned it that we don't just work with a certain segment of workers. We work with all residents of our counties, and that includes those who are already employed. And there's a program called Incumbent Worker Training. And that's where we'll share in the cost to train and upskill your incumbent workforce so that you can move them up to the next line. And we can help you backfill the line that was vacated with that incumbent worker training. So, happy to answer any questions that you may have and fill in the blanks, later on. But with that, I'll pass it back to you, Kelly, or to my colleague on the panel, Minah.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So we're gonna have Minah give an update on what her program is doing at the college. And I just want to remind everyone that there is so much talent. And obviously, if your county is not represented here today, that all of the counties have similar types of programs and can direct you personally. So Minah, I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. And I'm pleased to talk about what Howard Community College is doing in the realm of apprenticeship. And I am so happy to be sharing this platform with our local and state partners who've been so helpful in this process. And I think another thing I'll say before I begin is to say, you know, the local and state agencies, and they're really friends as we were developing this, and they really help you not only guide through the process, but help you braid resources. So that's what we've been able to do. So I'd like to start with some questions for you to sort of ponder as employers. So first of all, think about the latest openings you may have had. And what were some of the minimum job requirements you were requiring? And then think about the last group of people you might have hired and how deep were those pools? How many people did you have coming after those positions you posted? And even after you posted those positions, how many of them did you have to actually train them on the job? Nobody came right being able to like hit the road running on day one, right? And then finally, think about the last group of people or person that you might have had to let go, right? And what was the reason behind that? And usually, a lot of the employers, what they would say is that it's not the hard skills, but it was all the other soft, essential skills, such as critical thinking, communication, teamwork, and all the other things. So, one of our first apprenticeship was with AT&T. And what we started with them was they came to us because they were having an issue with a workforce pipeline. And they were saying, you know, we have all these openings and it's really hard to not only attract those people, but to keep and retain those talents once they had it. So we really were able to look at those job descriptions and look at it from a different lens. We said, okay, what are the competencies you're looking for? Can they be trained up? And then we said, what are the most important things? For example, what is a cultural fit? What is a mission fit? What are the characteristics you're looking for? So what we did was we flipped that conversation of instead of saying we need these qualifications to say we're looking for this type of people to really create a team. And what we did was we went out and we advertised those positions. In our first cohort, we had more than 110 people apply for 15 positions. And we've been having a lot of success ever since. So what we do is we hire them and we advertise these positions. Students come in applying for this. We vet them through different screening processes. And the unique thing about AT&T is that it comes with a security clearance. So we have to do a lot of vetting for this. And as they're waiting for their security clearance to come through, they're working for AT&T part-time and they're taking classes. So they're not just sitting around waiting, they're really learning and gaining those competencies. And as soon as the security clearance comes through, they convert to full-time and they're able to work and really hit the ground running. What this apprenticeship model has done for us and for AT&T and SDTIT, who is another partner, is they really increased the diversity of their workforce. Not only that, it really increased the company loyalty. Headhunters are real, right? So as soon as these people get cleared, all these people come after them, and AT&T has notified us that it is true. As soon as these students get cleared, all these people come, but majority of these students stay because they're loyal to the company that has invested in them before they were ready. So if you're really looking to diversify your pool, we really need to think about what is an untapped potential. And we have a great untapped potential at community colleges. So to tell you a little bit about some of the programs, we have 4 occupations in IT, IT field support, network support, info specialist, information system security, Linux administrator. We also have software development and help desk technician. On top of that, we have other areas like surgical tech, construction management, biomedical technician, and LPN, licensed practical nurse. So why is working with community colleges a great deal? It's because we already have a relationship with these local and state agencies. And also, we are part of the system where we're used to doing a lot of paperwork, and we have the related instructions for you, right? Of all the credit and non-credit programs that we offer, we can easily convert them as related instruction. And I know we're really running low on time, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Minah. And I think it shows the wonderful collaboration between I think most people take for granted and don't know that it's happening every single day in and around this world of what we call workforce development. And having served at both the Department of Labor and Department of Commerce, when I was at Labor, I always reminded my economic development folks, you can't have economic development without workforce development. And then when I got to Commerce, I reminded my economic development folks, I was like, you can't have workforce development without economic development, right? So they do go hand in hand. And when we talk about the very intricate layers of employer-employee relationships and how to build valuable teams, I think we have learned, and we saw back in the state presentations as well as the local presentations, that the partnerships within the system, within the ecosystem, have to be so strong. If anybody has a specific question, I would please put it in the chat. Happy to answer those questions. But I have, I guess, maybe just a overall question, and Kirk, maybe this is for you. So we have some businesses, right? So this gets down to some of the bureaucracy and the nitty-gritty of the system. So you have a business that's in Arundel, because you had mentioned Fort Meade and how you're working together with Howard County. Can you help those businesses that are in your county recruit people that may not be in Anne Arundel County? So how does that system work if it's not all within the same local jurisdiction?
So good question, Kelly. So whereas we work with both businesses and county residents, but our primary goal is to make sure that the businesses in Anne Arundel County can attract the workforce that they need to be successful. We would love it that it's a county resident, and we really want to promote that, but our job is to make sure that business gets that skilled workforce that they need. So we do work collaboratively with all of our workforce partners. I mean, Fran and I, Walter Simmons down in Prince George's County, even Anthony. We reach out and try to connect and help those businesses get the skilled workforce that they need. I mean, we've been very proud. And around the workforce development, we've led several statewide initiatives to help build a pipeline of skilled workers throughout the state, partnering with the other workforce boards. So we work collaboratively to make sure that we're making that match between the businesses and the skilled job seeker.
Great. Yeah, no, that's very helpful, because I want all of the members and all the participants on this call to know that you are a valued resource. And if you have questions, we're going to be sharing after this call all of the local workforce. So Yvette had a question for us in the chat about who to talk to in Prince George's County regarding pandemic costs, perhaps. So the Prince George's County Workforce Development Office is also going to be listed as a resource, and you can go to that county. I'm not sure, Kirk, if there are additional fundings to be able to support businesses. I've been out of that game for a little bit to support businesses with ongoing pandemic costs, but I'm assuming that each county has some little bit of a different program.
Yeah, so even if it's not in the workforce office, we can connect you to our economic development office, but several of the workforce offices do have programs. I think Anthony mentioned some of the programs that he has in Montgomery County to help with that. But our job is, we want to be a resource to businesses. Of course, our main primary function is workforce, but if it's something you need is not workforce, then we're here to help you. We're here to get you connected to the right person and provide that right resource to you.
So this is going to be kind of a fun question. So how does somebody get involved if they have decided today that they are going to be workforce development geeks and want to be a part of the local board? I know that those meetings are open to the public, and they are there to be able to service all of the businesses and anybody that wants to be involved. So what does that process look like?
So if you just want to participate in the meeting and see what's going on, as you said, they're public meetings, so they are open. Each of us lists our meeting dates and how to connect, either location or the Zoom link on our website, so you can always go there. But if you really want to roll up your sleeves and get involved with the local board and be on the local board, then I would encourage you to reach out to your local workforce development director. Members of the local workforce boards are appointed by the chief elected official, but I know that at least in Anne Arundel County, I make recommendations to the county exec on who should be on the local workforce board. So if you are an IT business or any business in Anne Arundel County and you're looking to get more involved, please let me know. You can either join the local workforce board, or better yet, you could join one of our sector partnerships. Again, we have a sector partnership in each of those high growth industries. So that's another way, without actually being appointed to the board, that you can get involved and help your industry come up with a pipeline of skilled workers.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna jump through because we have 2 minutes left. So there's a couple of questions on here. Does your system assist with pre-employment testing?
We can do that depending on the test. Sometimes we might have to go to our partners at the community college, or work with a third-party testing center like Pearson VUE or things like that, but we can definitely help with that.
Great. And so let's put a real emphasis on this next question. So Yvette wants to know, are these services offered to LLC small businesses or only corporations?
LLC, sole proprietors, large corporations, we serve all businesses to help them get the skilled workforce that they need, or connect them to other services. So it could be any business.
That's great. So I know we have about a minute left, and I think I've gone through all of my questions that's here, but does anybody have anything final to say? Minah, I want to thank you for providing the conversation about what that training partner looks like. And by the way, all of the communications, Maryland has a phenomenal community college system in the state, and every community college in the state is very, very helpful with all of these programs, both at the local and the state level. So on behalf of us that need for you, for our employers and employees to be successful, thank you to the community colleges for being such a big part of that.
Thank you, Kelly.
So anybody else have anything to offer? If not, I am just going to say, on behalf of all of us at the Maryland Tech Council, thank you to all of our presenters today, both the government, academia, and private sector that were in part of this conversation. It's hugely important. I will just say, for the last almost 4 months now that I've been with the Maryland Tech Council, one of the major questions has been about workforce development. This is something that means so much to all of us to be able to create a better ecosystem for all of our businesses and to create opportunities for our employees. But one of the biggest questions has always been, or the statements, is we need to start a program that does X, Y, or Z. And I would always smile and say, it's funny, we have programs that do X, Y, and Z. So the whole purpose of this conversation is to make sure that we first start to know where our baseline is, where those programs are, and if we need to expand those that are working well. Not a lot needs to be recreated because Maryland does do it very well, but we're happy to be a part of that. And for all of our participants today, consider the Maryland Tech Council a great partner for what you do. And if we can ever be of assistance, get employers to the table, you just let us know, and we're happy to do that. But on behalf of all of us, the Maryland Tech Council, and my dog, who is just about ready to lose his cool, I want to say happy Monday to everyone, and we'll be looking forward to getting all of the information out to this call and to all of our members in the very near future. Happy Monday. Take care. Thank you.